We're going to start the show with a new friend of mine who I met yesterday on Dan Wootton Outspoken, Emma Dunwell. Emma, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all. Well, we have a general policy on my shows that I don't really interview people under 25 years old. And the reason for that is not because I'm ageist. It's just that I think I talk about politics a lot, and I think until 25, you're still developing your frontal cortex. Your stance in the world is still being shaped. You're still being formed. I think it's irresponsible of people like me to be interviewing people who are very young because they may say or do things that they may later regret. And we've seen this many times in media where young people come on, they think they're doing great, they say something fiery to get attention, and then end up, getting kicked out of college or university and ruining their lives, etc. So I see it as a responsibility thing. However, the Labour Party this week have dictated that they are going to bring in votes for 16-year-olds, which I believe to be personally far too young to make any responsible decision. You, Emma, I believe, are 21,
Yes.
so younger than my average guest, but it's for the reason that you are the youngest person that I know that has a political opinion, and you do very well on this. And so I thought I'd get your take on it. Why would 16-year-olds deserve the vote?
Well, I suppose there is an argument to be made that there are some 16-year-olds that are contributors to society. There are children or people under 16 that, are carers for vulnerable members of their family. So there are young people that do have a sense of responsibility and can carry it out. So I suppose there's an argument to be made that if those people should be allowed to vote, if they're contributing to society, they should be allowed to have a say. However, like you said, the majority of young people are still very much developing in their political opinion. I mean, I try and stay on, bedrock beliefs, but my opinion has changed on certain things over the years. I mean, I look back on the times when I was in high school and I can see that I was a huge lefty. So, and that was when I was about, sort of 15, 16. So it takes you a while to really come into what you really believe in and have a bedrock principle in which you build up on. And I don't think that 16 is a responsible age to be having the vote.
So at 16, you can't purchase alcohol, tobacco, or even vapes. You can't drink alcohol in licensed premises. You can't drive a car, purchase or possess fireworks. You can't get married without your parents' consent. You can't serve on a jury. You can't purchase a lottery ticket or a scratch card. You can't work full time in hazardous jobs. You can't access age-related content. So you can't play Grand Theft Auto or even The Last of Us Part 2, although you may watch it on Netflix. You can't play the video game that it's about. And you can't be held fully criminally responsible as an adult, which I think is probably the key in that if the law of the land doesn't see you as an adult and you can't take full responsibility for your actions, why therefore should you be able to vote? Do you think this is going to be a major mistake?
I think it's going to be a huge mistake, but I think it's reminiscent of, or perhaps maybe a byproduct of all the indoctrination we're seeing of the youth. I think this is a very deliberate move because they know that because they've been indoctrinated in the universities and the schools with, the trans ideology and so much more, it will, if they are now given the option to vote, left-leaning governments such as the Labour Party can pretty much guarantee that they're going to vote a certain way. So I think it's more of a deliberate move as to non-financially, I guess, buy votes.
Interesting. So you think they're looking for a block vote in that if we give you the franchise, you kind of owe us your vote, or more that the younger people are maybe aligned with Labour policies. Is this what you think Labour believe, or is this the truth? Do you think that young people are generally in line with these kind of woke liberal policies?
I would say that on the whole, young people are generally more left leaning subconsciously because when you're growing up, you want to believe in, the basic goodness of people. You don't always see the dark side of humanity. And it's only really when you grow up and you start to see the real and the ugly and what's going on in the world that you start to kind of, I suppose, get a tougher view because you have to have a tougher view in order to deal with certain things. So I do think that the younger generation would likely be more left leaning. I mean, as I said, I was myself,
Mm.
but I think that is simply um, naive, not negatively, but I think that's just simply naive hope that every child innately has. And I think it's only when you get older that you start to really see the complexity of it. I mean, 16-year-olds, when they're voting, they're probably just voting on a block yes or no decision. They don't understand the grey areas. They don't understand perhaps, how this would affect foreign policy, how it would affect, taxation. All of these different things make it just far too much of a complicated issue.
Mm.
And I don't think that our youth would be able to handle it.
So what changed your mind? What made you become more centrist or right wing from a left wing liberal?
Well, I didn't. I attempted going to colleges, and I went through a bit of a suffering with my mental health when I was kind of in my late teens, and I couldn't handle the crowds of college. I just having anxiety attacks all the time. So I ended up starting to do my study from home. That led me into doing the Open University when it came to move on to uni. So I was at home all the time, and I've always been interested in knowing what's going on in the world. I've always known that I wanted to grow up and make a difference somehow, one way or another. So me and my mom, we were just watching the news every day, and then we'd get to talking. And then, after about 6 months or so of that, I'd kind of developed my opinion on what was going on. Not long before that, my great grandmother had died, who was 95, and we cared for her. And then the winter fuel payments issue came about, and it completely broke my heart.
Mm.
Um, it felt so evil, utterly evil, and it made me feel connected to it, and I wanted to go and do something about it. Like I was like putting things out on Facebook, just like with family and friends, saying, if there's anyone that that is going to be not have heating, this, let's put our money together, let's get blankets, let's get these things, let's sort something out, even if it's just in our local area, let's do something. Then my younger brother, he is nearly 10, and he's severely autistic. And I was seeing the targeting of neurodivergent children with the trans ideology. And it was at that point where I kind of felt like there is something deliberate going on right now in our country. The Labour government have just come in and just deliberately betrayed everyone. And it made me want to do something about it.
Interesting. So from an idealistic point of view, thinking maybe perhaps as many people do that Labour will come in and be helpful to many people in their socialist ideologies, but actually straight away stripping the winter fuel allowance and then targeting neurodivergent, vulnerable people. Absolutely right. This is the problem with socialism, though. This is what it does. It is dark, and I think it's wonderful that you came around so quickly, but not a lot of people do. How do you wake up people of your generation? How do you wake up the younger people who still believe that trans rights are human rights and all this kind of these silly empty rhetorics that they're told to parrot?
Um, For me, a lot of it was about coming to my faith, because that kind of happened around the same sort of time. Um, and I think that that had a lot to do with it, coming to God and realizing that men and women are made equal but different and for different roles and purposes. And that was something that, being always taught to be a strong, independent woman, it's something you kind of have to knock down and then rebuild. Um, and that was what kind of made me change my mind. And I think that there we are starting it. But other than that, evidence, showing them irrefutable evidence, the hard conversations, and showing people something that may be, hard to look at or hard to listen to, such as these detransition stories, people that can no longer have children, botched surgeries, children that have gone on puberty blockers and hormone blockers. All of the negative impacts of this, I think, need to just be pushed out into main light so people can see it for what it is.
Absolutely. So you've been out there on the streets doing vox pops. We're going to show a clip of one of your videos in a moment, if Jack can pull that up for us. So you've been out there asking questions, mostly I see of Christians. I understand this was one of Nick Tanconi's events on the street. Here we have a 16-year-old Christian. Let's see what he had to say.
Islam in general can be compatible with Christianity and Western culture?
Well, religion is difficult because religion's always kind of put out by the people practicing it. So right now, I think actually when you talk about the integration of Islam into the West, we're kind of seeing the reverse effect. We're seeing Muslims kind of being changed by the West. So especially me as a young person, I'm only 16. If you go into colleges, for example, the most haram people are Muslim kids. They go into pubs, have girlfriends. So in fact, it's actually the reverse. You see that Muslims are being chipped off by the West. Now, slowly through mass immigration, we're seeing more of a radical element to Islam. So it really depends what you mean when you're asking me that question. Are you asking me people's personal interpretations of Islam? Is that compatible? Absolutely, because it's a lukewarm, watered-down version of Islam. But then you really have to say, well, if you're a Christian, should we allow people to continue in the heresy of Islam? My answer is no.
That's a based answer, I'm not gonna lie, for a 16-year-old. Fantastic. And then in the contrast, if we look at the next clip, um, James, I believe this chap's name is the exact opposite.
Yes.
I don't like the whole Christ is King stuff because it's demonic in my
We'll just
opinion.
rewind
The
that so we get
Bible
the
is
first
quite
clip.
clear
Yeah.
that you shouldn't be repeating sort of chants, but I thought that the two ladies from Nigeria spoke the first one spoke very eloquently, and the second one spoke also about the plight of Nigerians in her country. And I think sometimes the right need to learn how to play the game. I warned them about the ecumenist nature of this group. I warned them about what I believe are the UKIP's flirtations with fascism, which again, I mean, I actually think Nick gave a very good impromptu speech about the statue outside the BBC, which was actually done by a paedophile. I mean, you can't make this up. I think that the people on the right need to learn how to play the game, and some of these people don't know how to play the game, not in the slightest. Christianity is not a political movement. That is clear. Christ made it quite clear that his kingdom is not of this world. And I think you need to know the Lord, but you need to read the Bible for yourself, which is why I am a Christian. But I think that the group is it's quite an eclectic mix, but I am not an ecumenist in just saying that. I can't with an honest heart say that Roman Catholics are Christians, and I'm not saying that to be unkind, I'm just saying it as it is.
No, that's fair enough. So do you think that Christianity, even though there has been a mass return to Christianity, I think because of the two-tier justice and everything that we're seeing in this country, but do you think that it's not maybe as pure as it may seem, and that it is actually more of a political movement rather than a return to real faith?
Oh, we didn't get the answer to that, but I think that's a fascinating clip because, firstly, it seems there are certain agitators that are out there that are paid with dark money to undermine good work, and Nick Tanconi is one of those people that is doing good work with both UKIP and his disciples of Christ. And this James chap seems to be, and I'm not saying that he is paid, but he seems to be one of those agitators that are out there to undermine it. Because let's break down what he was saying. Yelling Christ is king is blasphemous. To who or what? It's literally proclaiming Christ as king. It's the most basic Christian message there is. Cannot be blasphemous. Ecumenism is bad. So Christians getting together, finding unity in their faith in Christ is bad. Again, that's this guy seems to be speaking for the other side. Cannot say that Roman Catholics are Christians. We were all Roman Catholics before the Great Schism and of 1054 and before the Reformation of 1534. Like we were all part of one faith. So to say that they are not Christian is absurd. You can say I think they're in error. I think they're doing certain things or saying certain things wrong. But to say they're not Christians, again, it seems to me that this guy is working on behalf of dark forces that are not Christian. And so it's to undermine this Christian uprising that is happening. But are you seeing that, Emma? Are you seeing a revival? You spoke there to a 16-year-old who seems very articulate in his faith versus an adult that was clearly quite confused about the faith. What are you seeing?
I am seeing a mass return to Christianity. The what I will say about James's response in that video is what I would take from that, because I completely what I will say is I completely disagree with the comparison to UKIP and fascism. I completely disagree. I think that Christianity and a strong British temperament is what we need in this country, especially at the moment. However, I do think that there may be a point to be made that some people may be joining the Christian return for political reasons. But as we know, culture is downstream from politics. Why are people doing this? They are doing this because of the policies that have landed us in the situation that we are in. Therefore, political motivations may be what's motivating it. But personally, I think that as long as people are coming to Christ and finding their faith, I don't see a huge issue with it. I think that once people come into that mindset, regardless of why they wanted to get there in the beginning, once you feel that and you feel that community, you feel that connectivity, I think that's when for a lot of people it would become real if it wasn't to begin with. So I don't think that it's at too much of a risk of becoming a purely political movement. I do think that there is real faith behind it.
People gathering together in the name of Christ is not a bad thing for anyone but the devil. And so when Christians gather together, that is church. When two or three are gathered together in his name, he is with us, right? And so even if people are joining that and they're not yet Christian, well, they're in church, they're joining church. Joining church for any reason is a good thing. More people in church, please, is my motto. And so, yes, I think you're spot on with that analysis. And I think people like James need to be the ones who are cautioned rather than the ones who are cautioning.
Thank you for watching my Common Sense Crusade. If you'd like to watch the whole show, you can subscribe to lotuseaters.com for as little as £5 per month, and then you get access to a bank of content as well. My show is 3 p.m. every Thursday. See you there. Deus Vult.